the time. Okay? Yeah. We are live in a minute.
Okay, it's good to see you, Ranjini.
Same here, ma'am. So glad.
Yeah, you'll do great. Don't worry.
Thank you.
When a person has done the work, then there is nothing to worry about. Yeah? It's your own baby.
Yeah.
She's gone for a year to Germany, I think. Otherwise, she's
Okay.
in India. Yeah. It's just a good platform where a lot of people you can share and a lot of women also. She has like 3 or
Yes.
4 sessions in a week.
Okay.
So whenever I meet somebody, I feel that we should have. So then
That's
I
great,
call.
ma'am. So glad that you felt so,
Yeah.
because it makes a lot of difference too. Because it's again, I speak about water here and there, but I never sat and read about it like now.
Yeah.
Big beer on live.
Yeah, we're on live. How are things in Kochi?
Oh, here, yeah, again, slight crisis started around the LPG thing, but otherwise things are all okay. But most of my family is in half in Dubai and half in London. So yeah,
Okay. They're doing okay?
yeah. So far so good.
How is the weather in Kochi?
Kochi now it's a little slightly hot, but yeah, but still
Manageable.
manageable.
Hey.
Yes.
Okay,
So
Ashini.
are you from Kochi actually, or?
Yeah. No, I'm based out of Cochin. My mom, yeah, house is in Trivandrum. So, but
Okay.
like I grew up outside. I mean, like I grew up in UAE. So
Okay, because we usually make a map of our speakers, so then we are live now. So I will just share the live links in our respected.
I've sent the LinkedIn
Yes,
profile.
I have you now. Actually, in the next season, Indira, we are turning it into podcast. So we will record and then we will telecast, because for me also this will be now easier option, given the kind of travel and commitment is increasing here.
So you'll do podcast with the video kind of recording or just audio?
Video podcast, and then posting it on the day of our planned event, but recording anytime. So I'm thinking that then it will actually give me a little bit of flexibility, although it is going to be more difficult, because discipline has helped me flow. But if I try to flow with others' time, then I think it will be crazy for me. But anyway, we are
Lots of
set, and I think I will take your permission to start whenever you think you are ready.
Yeah,
Okay.
please put
Okay.
together.
I think it is a good time to get started so that we can also in on time. Record. Just looking for recording. Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, a think tank instituted as Citizens Collective, we welcome you to another session of Friday Waters, The conversation today in Friday Waters is on water arts, and the session is titled Closing the Loop, Glass Waste and the Future of Water Conservation. Before we get into the session, a quick overview of Friday Water Series. Friday Water Series includes Water Talkies, Water Reading Club, Water Thesis Club, Water Arts, and Meet a Maestro, each of them taking place once a month depending on availability of the speakers. Friday Waters is also an extension of our signature series, Wednesdays for Water. The focus of Water Art series is on bringing the artists who have done or are doing any form of art on water matters in the session in order to discuss with them the making of the artwork, the issues around the subject they cover, their concerns, their solutions. Besides bringing interest in the water conversation, we also hope to increase the outreach of the artwork as well as the artist in the society and especially in the water network. My name is Mansi Bal Bhargav and I'm from the House of W4W and also the host of the session today. For today's session on Closing the Loop, Glass Waste and the Future of Water Conservation, we have with us Ranjini Thampi as our speaker and Dr. Indira Khurana as discussant. Before I invite them to speak and also have their conversation ready, let me just give a quick overview of bios of both the girls. Ranjini Thampi is a multidisciplinary designer and artist and sustainability entrepreneur, and she's the founder of Gapasi, a circular design startup that transforms discarded glass into high-value product artworks and public installations. With glass upcycling at the core of her practice, Ranjini has upcycled several glass bottles, diverting them into saving them from getting into landfills, soil contamination, and water bodies. Through her public art, infrastructure projects, and functional design, she demonstrates how material reuse can aid land and water restoration while reshaping how society values waste. Incubated at IIM Bangalore, NSRCEL and Climate Collective India and trained by the UNSDG School, Ranjini was featured by the New York Times in 2024 as part of Women in Climate Collective, recognizing her contribution to global climate action. Thank you so much, Ranjini, for taking out time for this conversation. And before I let you start your presentation, let me just invite also Dr. Indira Khurana. And first of all, welcome back, Indira. And thank you so much for connecting us to new wisdom and new speakers, as we both believe that water connects. Dr. Indira Khurana is chairperson of the Indian Himalayan River Basins Council, a growing network of concerned citizens linking the hearts, minds, and actions of people with rivers in states of India. She is also vice president, chairperson at the Tarun Bharat Sangh and director at the Coastal Salinity Prevention Cell and advisory council member of Balipara Foundation, commissioner at the People's World Commission on Drought and Flood, a network of like-minded individuals dedicated to work towards drought and flood, mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. Indira has a long biography to work on, but today we are going to keep it short like this, and I will post the rest in the chat box. And now I invite Ranjini to make her presentation. So the conversation today will be, she will first make her presentation, then Indira will engage with her in a discussion, which is Q&A mostly. And then we can also jump into, I see some people also in YouTube, so please feel free to post your chats or questions and comments to our speakers. So over to you, Ranjini, and thank you so much once again. And please start with your opening remarks and then I'll ready your presentation.
Thank you, Mansi. Thank you, Indira ma'am, and all whoever present here. I'm so glad that there are people who want to know about water and how waste is also a part of it, and how art changes the whole idea around it. And frankly, I'm so glad to see everyone this evening, very pleasantly needing to know how it works. And I am not so much of a speaker, so it is more of like it is more kind of a thing which I have it in mind, and then more of a conversation I would try to pick up and want to keep it interesting, so that there is no much of jargons used here, but more of friendly talk which we will be having. And I'll just run through the presentation to have an overview about what we do and how it is affecting and how it is trying to counterfeit the whole idea around water. So this is what we'll be doing. And we're based out of Cochin. And the startup is Vapasi. Vapasi is going back to life. And this is all, it's all around going back. And we had an era where we were not thinking that we should be throwing everything. We were more concerned about what we throw into the environment. Everything was, measured. Now we are in a space where we think it is okay to throw. So that's what we are trying to bring back. Vapasi means exactly the same word as it just literally means. And why I speak about the glass waste is that, glass waste goes nowhere. That's a main issue that glass has come into an area where I wanted to work on. So the whole idea was that when I looked at the stats, it's like we feel the glass is, it's 100% recyclable. So why it is being recycled at many points. But the sad truth is only 35 to 40% glass is recycled in India. And the things are not different in other countries also. It is almost like 45% of, so probably 45 to 50%. And this is what has taken me to a journey which I saw. I saw that problem is around the place where I live in Cochin. I could see that the bottles are all around the place. It is there in the water bodies. It is there in the wastelands. It is there around us. So when I started asking questions of why it is not being taken, that's when I started realizing that fact that people are not collecting glasses and they are not sending it to the recycling centers because of a lot of reasons. And Kerala is almost at the end. I thought it is more of a Kerala problem. So then my actions were also in that idea. Still, I found that it is actually not a problem just out of Kerala. And it's a global problem which we right now are not talking about and will be vocal talking about it in the next 10 years probably. Mansi, could you please go into the next slide? So as I told already, it is Vapasi. We work on upcycled and sustainable home decor. Whatever you are seeing on the screen is all made from waste glass. It's made from waste industrial glass waste and the bottles which we see around us. Next slide, please. So why we are talking a lot about glass thing, because of the soda lime glass thing which is being made. You can see that silica on the screen is shown that silica takes 70 to 74% of it for the making. And then it comes to soda ash, which is like 12 to 16%, and limestone 5 to 12%. And very small additives, which is aluminum, magnesium oxide, which is 1 to 5%. But we can see from the table that it is more focused on 70 to 75% of silica sand. And where do we think that this whole idea of silica sand comes from? Could you please go to the next slide, please? And there you go, mining and extraction. And we are all talking about mining riverbeds and mining seabeds, and there are issues around it. But we always think it is happening mostly for construction. Construction is the main focus when you tell about mining. But frankly, there is one more thing which we are not addressing. The moment we say that, okay, now we'll ban plastic, people switch to more the so-called sustainable things, that's glass, paper. And yes, paper is something which we all know that there are a lot of implications on the natural resources for paper. But frankly, glass, which is has been there for the whole, all the civilizations had shown us that there were glass in some form. And we talk very less about it because we think that it goes into the land and then it goes there and there is no problem. But it takes 1 million years for the glass to decompose if it goes into the land. So that is the time we might not, we can say that the civilizations change, the languages change. We all have, every single thing will be changed in 1 million years. And this is where the glass is just being dumped. And mining and extraction in that area is where we have the most environmental impact on water. I mean, like, when it comes to mining and extraction, there's a lot of issues around water. Riverbeds are being, when the mining is happening in the riverbeds, as we all know, there are, impacts in the area, especially the local are the ones who would normally get impacted from it. And there are other issues around where, people are saying, okay, there is a groundwater depletion which happens in that area. The river bank erosion and flood risk which happens. And these are all things which we talk, but this is something which we don't see from the angle of the silica being mined. It is more of the sand mining we think about. And the main issue around mining is that river and coastal ecosystem is always being damaged, that area, the riverbeds, the floodplains, the beaches and quarries. There's a lot of issues which happens around it. And as we all know, there is a problem around ecosystem there. There is a fish breeding grounds which is going to be disturbed. The aquatic habitat is being completely destroyed. And in turn, it affects the biodiversity and the river wetlands of that area. And again, there is a lot of literature around how the erosion is being caused, the flood risk comes. And look, we all are in those areas where in Kerala also we had a huge impact on when there were floods. So we know how it has impacted in different areas, how when we talk to the people in those areas, that's when we get to know that, okay, they had places where the sand was being mined. And there is some kind of mining which has happened there. So that's why main problem has come. And when you talk to people in those areas, they always complain about groundwater depletion, because again, there is the natural aquifers get affected in this whole process, and large scale extraction can lower the groundwater tables and reduce natural water filtration, and it can affect in turn affect the agriculture and the drinking water resources around the place. And a huge another issue when mining and extraction happen is the open pits and the barren land which are created. Obviously, there are landscapes which we want to maintain where it looks very different, or probably that is the scenic beauty of it. But it's all taken for a toss when we don't have that kind of thing around us. Can we go to the next slide? And why we think that water is a huge issue in, like, when it comes to glass production. So the main thing we already saw, there is a silica issue which is around it. And the next one would be raw material processing. Processing in different levels, they have to use water, where the footprint is really, really high. It is way higher than what we actually think. And the furnaces has to be cooled with water, and the equipments to make sure that it is done in a proper way. So whenever, for instance, when we are cutting glass, we say that glass is very strong. It will only be cut by diamond. Diamond is the only thing which can cut the glass. The part of thing which people don't know is that when the glass is being cut by diamond, it has to have a lot of water pumped into that system. Only with water, the diamond can cut it. Because it is not like, just you put a diamond blade, you put the glass, and then you can cut it. No, whenever there is a cutting blade involved, there is always water being pumped into the system to make sure that there is a cooling which happens and the precise cut is being observed. So there are multiple levels of water that is used in it. And again, for the cleaning and finishing of glass products, you need to clean the soda ash and everything once the production is done. That is also one thing which where water footprint is very, very high. That is like that's why water comes into play when it comes to glass. Can we have the next slide? And that's the main reason that when we think about, of course, there are other issues around the life of glass, which gives that pump for us to do different things in those areas. But a huge environmental impact is the main issue that we try to consider when there is a circular practice being inculcated in the system, because industrial water demand decreases when there are not new production. It is more of a recycling if it is done, because you don't need to have that kind of water which you need for making a new set of glass. I mean, if it is recycled in the proper way, where we are talking about 35 to 40% in India, if that is taken to like around 80% itself, the industrial water demand can really go low. And the pollution that could contaminate water bodies is reduced. That is one huge issue which we have around, because you can always see whenever we are having this beach cleanup, we are having some areas we go to clean up, the amount of glass bottles we collect during that part is like humongous. Then we feel that why it is being thrown out. How do we think that it is okay to throw something into the river or sea or any water body for that matter? So this huge impact is something which is overlooked, because we think that okay, glass to hai, when it just gets the whole issue is when you drop into the mud also, what happens? Plastic, yes, it has an impact. Glass doesn't. That's a thought process generally we have in mind. We are not bothered about talking about it. And there is a resource efficiency which in turn comes into play when we are closing the loop like this, because there is when you look at things, when you don't want to just buy something and just throw, if you're throwing it in the right area, then you know that it goes to the right set of people for recycling. So this is very important. That's why the loop closing is very important. Can you please go to the next slide? And yes, and we are, there's a lot of information I have shared on how water impacts, and yes, the rest of the things we can hear through when we have the discussion, because that's going to be more interesting. And this is these are the people who supported us when we thought glass is definitely a problem. It was Climate Launchpad which launched us basically. And then it came IIM Bangalore, NSSL, and again, Women in Climate Collective, which is an international group where we got into different places, where even COP29 was something which I attended because of Women in Climate Collective. And Startup India has recognized us as one of the startup ideas. And we thought it was just a waste idea until unless they understood that, okay, there is some potential in it. Yes. Can we have the next slide? These are some of the materials which you had changed the conversations. Normally when we sit in Maple and when you see this, that's when we have the thought is around how it is made and why it is different, why it is quirky. So that's a whole idea that art, how we have added art element into it to make it look like a thing which can start the conversation. You can see those the platter which is there. The platter is actually made by slumbing glass, just slumbing, and then we use it as a platter. So bamboo reeds are given for the where you can hold it. And we have a wind chime which is completely made from glass. We have a table lamp which is, yes, directly converted, and soy wax candles which are made from glass bottles. So yes, the next slide, please. So we have uh, the counted numbers is 28,000 plus glass bottles which we have upcycled. Definitely there is an uncounted number which I really don't know. So this is the something which we have kept as a memory, but I'm pretty sure it's in lakhs. But we at least keep it 28,000 plus is something which we know that we exactly did. And yeah, and uh, next slide. And it is like, when I started it, it's more like uh, just, people around us think that, oh, okay, why do you have to talk about waste on the table? It's a that taboo thing you don't want to address, you don't want to speak about it, you don't want to see it, you just want it to be in your backyard or just out of your sight. So this is a conversation I used to have with the people around me, and suddenly the taboo thing has gone out of picture. Now people like to talk to me about what I do. But when I started it in 2020, it was before the 2020, 2019 was when I actually pitched the idea to a couple of people. So when I did that at that time, and people were like asking me, are you just going nuts? Because after doing a couple of jobs which are like, well off, and suddenly I'm running behind the waste, which no one cares about. And why? Especially I'm an artist, I have a background of that, I'm doing that work. Why do you have to meddle in between the waste to make some difference? But to be very frank, over the time, people have started understanding it is just not a waste which we are trying to work. It is the impact which we are trying to create. People around me has recognized my madness into something like a thing you can actually have as a career. So then suddenly when I'm yeah, right now sitting in front of you and talking, I'm like, okay, that makes a difference because there are people to know about it. They want to know how it works. So this is the whole idea we had, and yeah, and we are here. So that's it. It's that's and can like in between. I think after the discussion, I'll play your video to understand how glass is made. So there is an idea of how we do the process. It's very slightly interesting stuff. So I think after the discussion, we can go for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ranjini. And yes, actually the first very question I was hoping to ask you is how do you convert a waste into such beautiful artifacts? But let me just invite Indira to initiate the conversation, and then we can take the conversation further. Indira, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mansi, and thank you, Ranjini, for agreeing to being with us, and second, for making this fascinating presentation, and most importantly, for having the courage to do the work that you're doing, and also, facing all the questions and all the trolling, online and offline, both maybe, and actually taking this work further. So, yeah, deep respect for that. And
Thank you.
we're very glad to have you here on this platform because we look at, this is Manti under her leadership. I don't know, she's got a lot of strength and a lot of persistence, and she believes that water connects. And so we get different kind of people working on different areas coming, and, we want to learn from them and expand the circle of people who are, concerned about water and the environment, and using their own skill, their own passion, how they're addressing the different problems that are relating to environment and especially to water. So I think it was really great that we could have you here. And some thoughts I'd just like to share before I come to the questions. Uh, I think many of us didn't, like you rightly said, we think of sand mining and, largely for the construction business. We don't think about that in terms of, or, like you need to do this mining for glass, either from the river or from the seabed, or we even do the other, the mining from the hills or whatever for the quartzite stone. And like you mentioned, mining has a lot of impact, and it's like, you can never get back what you have taken. You can never get it. It'll take like millions of years And if you cut a hill or a mountain, you're never going to get it back. And this is what we were discussing when we were talking about, the Aravali and the whole concept of ecological interconnectedness, how things are interrelated. Like you shared about how when you do excessive mining, then the water is affected, groundwater affected, aquatic biodiversity affected, ecosystems affected, livelihoods affected. So everything is so interconnected, and it's very important to have the integrity of all these ecosystems, because it's like, okay, if you cut you can't just take out and think that is going to grow back. For example, if you cut your fingernail at something that will grow back, but if you remove sand, or if you you cut off your hand, or you cut off, that's not going to grow back. There's always going to be something that's going to be damaging. So I think your work has really brought that out. And while 35% of India's waste, glass waste, is right now being recycled, I think the figures that I could see, like we have 3 million tons of generation of glass waste. I mean, that's huge. And here is a resource which you make a product, and you can recycle it multiple times. So I think it's important we work like yours, I think, will help us understand that. And I have what you said about this use and throw philosophy. This is also related to the markets. Now so many products are like just fridges, phones, so many things which used to last for decades. It's like use once and throw, and you don't want to know where you've thrown that. So I have a couple of questions for you. One is relating to, like, what are the challenges that you face? What are the challenges you face? And if we wanted to, given that India is only recycling 35%, how do we scale up efforts like this? How do we get our hands on this, on this glass? Because a lot of it is going to be decentralized. It's going to be in households, or in landfills, or like on river banks, and on beaches. And just some of the challenges that you faced when you started. These are just some of my initial questions to you.
Frankly, when I started out of curiosity, because I went to scrap centers and I could see that I went with my husband. He is a sound designer, so he wanted to collect some scrap materials to make cinema sound. That's how I ended up in scrap. And this is my guilty. That's the first time I'm seeing scraps in my whole lifetime. So this is something which I thought, it existed, but for me, it was always like where I grew up in UAE, and we used to put it through the chute and it just goes somewhere. So I was never concerned about waste in any form. So glass waste, when I saw these scrap center, the glass waste was mounted. Then I used to ask them, what are you gonna do? But generally, the scrap centers, people don't want you to ask questions. So they'll be like, they avoided me for the longest time. Then when it became a habit for me to go there again and again, that's when they realize, okay, they have to give me the answer, because I'm anyway going to ask it again and again. So and they felt that, okay, now she's not going to make any problem. She's asking out of curiosity. So that's when they told me that it is just being dumped. So I was like, what do you mean by just being dumped? It's like no one is collecting it in Kerala, because there was a old glass factory in Kerala which was shut down around 15 to 18 years back. And since then, there is no glass bottles which are collected and done something in Kerala. So what they do is they has to send it to Firozabad, and it is very expensive process. So what they do is no one is ready to do that expensive process. The glass doesn't have any value. It is being dumped. So this, and it's such a beautiful thing to be dumped. So the first thought was that why is such a beautiful thing going into the waste? Because that those alcohol bottles, which are like, classy bottles. Yeah, of course, I have an art in me. So I was like, I was feeling so bad. I used to collect bottles and bottles of it. And after a point, I realized that it is not a right thing to go collect and keep it at home, because you need to do something with it. So as everyone, I started doing paintings on it. Then I realized that there is a problem if I do glass painting, because it can never be recycled. So that is something I never knew. So these were like learning curves. So what I understood when I started doing anything around glass is that, as ma'am rightly said, there is a decentralized approach which has to come into picture, and the collection to the to the recycling should be well organized, so that this whole problem doesn't become a huge issue another 10 or 20 years. Because right now we are all having enough of silica, which we are mining here and there. But obviously there is a depletion point for it. So after that, what are we going to do? So what is our thought process then after that? What is the material we are going to go after? That is also a problem which right now no one talks about, because we are in that economy. We are talking more and more about plastic as a problem. That's the only thing which is a problem. Rest of the things are all okay. But I'm not telling that there is a problem when using glass. The problem is when it is not recycled properly, when it is just being dumped. So decentralized approach, where every state has to have a protocol to do it, is the only way we can counteract it. Because when I started it, it was more of like a Kerala problem. But frankly, there were calls from Tamil Nadu, even from Bangalore. People had called me and asked, how can we do this? Like, what can we do with these bottles? It's mostly bottles, like, industrial glass waste to an extent is actually taken to recycling centers, because you can't dump it here and there. It's really shards. But when it comes to glass bottles, no one is taking it. In South, it's a huge issue. In North also, there are areas where it is an issue, and some areas it is not. And the toughest process is because it is heavy. That is one main problem people face. It's heavy, so they don't want to move it because it is costly to move it. Is there any other idea to move it? Of course there is, but that requires R&D to, convert it back into silica, which again, there are a couple of NGOs which are doing it in not here, in Western countries, where they are converting to silica and adding it to the seabeds. So after some time, those areas will have a lot of, you will not have cracks and you will not have any issues walking through it. It will be just like the sand you see. That's it. So there are organizations which work on it. So this is an alternate method to counteract it.
The other question, just one more question, Mansi, and then I'll hand it over to you. This was, you mentioned you were part of the Women in Climate Action, climate collaborative. So how does this help in addressing the climate crisis? Is it mitigation? Is it, so just curious to know the interlinkages and why they got interested in your work.
Actually, the impact is the main thing, because when you work on something which is very, very different, and climate, definitely glass, I work with glass and other materials basically. But when you work with waste, there is a lot of narrative which is connected to the climate, because we have lands which are converted into wastelands because just of the waste which is being dumped. So this is a huge issue which releases carbon monoxide and other gases, which in turn affects the climate change. This is a narrative which has been spoken a couple of times, but yeah, again, it's a very grassroots level problem, which only surfaces when there is a problem in your vicinity, and after that it just dies down. Because we had a fire in the plant which is like 12 kilometers away from my house. And then all of a sudden, I was that VIP in the news where I have been called to talk about it. And this stayed for like 2 weeks. We were, asked questions, how we can do it, what we can. And after that, it's forgotten. It's gone forever. So this is that, a part which made me understand that we should go into different levels to get into that, climate as a process. And Women in Climate Collective was something which I applied because there were a couple of NGOs who asked me to apply it. And yeah, of course, as any other application, I thought no one is going to be interested in waste. So I was not expecting a comeback from them. And one day they're calling me and telling that I'm among the 20 people who are selected from India for the Women in Climate Collective, which is actually headed by Purpose. And this program was sponsored by L'Oreal Paris, which is their CSR initiative. So that's how they got interested in me. It is more of like, the work we do. We talk very less about the work we do, but definitely it has created impact. Then what I do as a person is like the only thing I know much is art. So what I try to do is I bring a link between art and climate. So trying to address it through art. And when we sell a product, the whole narrative is that we don't want it to be just a product, We want people to feel that they are owning a very different product. So that is the whole idea when we started Vapas. We didn't want it to be like, okay, I create a product, you buy a product. No, it was like when you are buying the product, you know that there is a narrative which is attached and you are contributing to the environment. Yeah, ma'am.
Thanks. Mansi, over to you. I'm conscious of the time.
Thank you so much, Indira, and thanks, Ranjini, for a quick overview of what is being done. And maybe it's a good time before I ask the question on how is it produced. So if you allow, I will actually play the video and then I can also take the question to you. Okay? Is
Sure.
that fine? Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Please confirm if you are seeing the video. Is it coming?
Yes. There's no sound though.
Okay, wait, then there is no sound, then I have to reshare. Please, sorry. I think now there is sound.
No.
No sound.
Can you? No sound.
Yes. There is sound now.
Okay, and now I would like to ask some questions, and if there are any questions from participants, I'm also checking in the YouTube now. Please put your questions or raise your digital hand so we can invite you on board. So my first question to you, whenever we talk about waste, you were so right that we are so much focused on looking at plastic as waste that we often consider glass as a better substitute. Like for example, in every house, we will have all glass bottles over plastic bottles or boxes or tiffin boxes and everything. That's one part. So definitely, I think most people have this perception this glass is better than plastic. So I have this question to you. What is your take on it for usage? I'll come to the waste later.
Definitely, I'm all in for people using glass products as usage. even if it is upcycled glass, recycled glass, or the virgin glass, glass is a very good medium to be used. The main thing, it doesn't corrode or it doesn't leach into anything what you are carrying in it. That is the best thing. And you don't have a lot of contamination around glass because it's very difficult to do any contamination around glass. That's why we have everything precious stored into glass bottles, especially the very expensive wines and all those things. Why it is kept in glasses? Because there is no leaching which happens. So that is the main thing. Then again, just not apart from I'm not even saying that we as a waste also it has an issue. Until and unless there is a proper way to recycle it, I don't think you can beat glass at any moment because it is being part and parcel of the whole system for years together, just like ceramics.
So actually, because you talked about virgin glass vis-a-vis upcycled, recycled glass, and so rightly mentioned that when we look at mining, we talk about sand mining, and we often forget that the main source of glass is also from those sand from the river and ocean bed, where silica is the main component. And good to know that production of glass cannot be contaminated, because at this moment in India, we are seeing high food adulteration all over. So probably there's this one material I learned today that it cannot be contaminated. Probably then the glass will not compose itself. So do we really need more glass in the world or in the country anymore, knowing that there is already overproduction? But because the development is going to continue, there is more production of soil or sand into the infrastructure, which also brings in more silica, which also brings in more glass production. So as a very conservative person myself, I am always questioning the way we actually set up a narrative of consumerism. Given the point that this is a hypothetical situation, that there is no mining from tomorrow and no silica being produced, because glass has a very good recycling capability, and we have a possibility to recycle the remaining 60% or 65% of glass in the country. What is your take on this? I mean, because I'll tell you the later part of the question why I asked this question. Do you think our glass industry and economy can still thrive by recycling and reusing the existing glass, given the point that from tomorrow, no sand and silica mining in the country? What's your take? See, I always ask difficult questions like a child.
I mean, this is a very, I would say it's a very intelligent question, because when we talk about waste as a problem, also there is an issue which we don't address. Because what if there is something being, put as a situation? So if there is any rule or any kind of practice where it will stop accumulation or probably the production of something, people will definitely go back and look at the resources which they have. Whenever we don't have, when our masala box, we don't have one masala, what we do is we will try and make that thing with the rest of the masalas. That's how we are. And Indians being very, very, very frugal, it will be very easy to do this math. It is very easy, because the moment you don't have something, the first thing will be like, what is there in the kitchen? Let's work with that. So this attitude has a lot of impact. And on another side, there are companies like BMW. They are trying to get glass, which is recycled glass, specifically recycled glass for their windshields. So because obviously there is an ESG attached to it, there are other implications on it, the carbon footprint and all those things. But when someone is asking you, you want recycled glass, then you will try working on it. When there is no ask, who's going to bother?
Yeah. So my next question is actually more attached to the waste side of it. If this material is circular by nature, inherently by nature, and I was so happy to hear that there are companies also converting back into silica and spreading it across the waterbed. That is very inspiring for me, to be honest, as a water scholar. I come to a moral question related to recycling, which I have always questioned whenever people talk about wastewater recycling, plastic recycling, and now today I hear from you glass recycling. Uh, the moral question here is, if it is seen as an economy to be used, which also means that that economy requires more waste glass or waste water or waste plastic, and in a way, is it actually encouraging more to consume to produce more waste? How imagine, and this is where the moral question comes to me, and I have actually had these discussions even to the extent of fighting with some of my friends, that if you are recycling, then the first thing you have to have as a tagline is to say that do not produce more waste. You know, I want to know where do you still have in the waste glass industry or association, something like that, a kind of a moral code of conduct that people like you are recycling because there is waste glass, and by no means you are promoting production of more waste glass. Do you understand my question? Because
Understood.
I always am scared about this waste recycling approach, because simply putting, let's say then these dumpcrete or these plastic furnitures and everything, I feel the waste is a so-called waste is getting redistributed in a different shape. Is redistributed in a more economy sense. It has a different shape, different name. There was a money involved into recycling. Is that something which is actually encouraging the very consumerism we have in consumption of a virgin product? Sorry. So first of all, the waste as a word should go away. That is a different issue altogether. But then people who are working on waste products, are they encouraging more waste production in the society?
Some materials, you're right. I would say that, there are some areas of materials. For example, plastic. Plastic disintegrates with each recycling. So obviously, you need to have more and more virgin plastic to sustain the circularity of it. And it is not truly circular, to be frank. That is another problem. And there are other materials. I'm just not talking about plastic, but there are other materials. Plastic is very relatable, I would say. But when it comes to glass, it can be circular, because you don't need to have a system where you have to consume more. If it is like a circular economy, then why do you need more consumption? Because if you're already consuming and you're putting it back into the system. And
Mansi, I had a question. Sorry to
Go
interrupt.
ahead, Siva. Go ahead.
In this recycling, don't you need a lot of power? And
Uh,
isn't there a dependency
water.
on coal and power to recycle into?
no, actually, if you're going when you're producing something new, you always need a lot of resources. Whatever it is, whatever you're trying to do, the resource efficiency is very low when you produce something new. But you have something, like you say that glass is segregated into different segments with the coefficiency of glass. That's a scientific part of it. So that's a chemical composition which is there. So once you have segregated that and you starting the process itself is cut down by like around 25 to 30% compared to what you have been doing for years together. And this impact is something which has pushed a couple of companies in the West to go for circularity in glass. So what they do is they are taking for example, Denmark, Sweden, they're all giving this responsibility back to the makers. Look, the system can survive not with me, not with anyone who's recycling or upcycling. No, it will survive only if those people who are making it, keeps a consciousness that it is there. The waste is also something they made. It has to go back to their system. It should not come back to someone else. No one else has to solve the problem. So our problem is that waste is out of sight and it's out of mind. We are not even thinking about it. So companies are also like that over here. Who was taking back the bottles? Who was doing that? But there are companies in the West where they are told to take back. You
I
have
think-
to take back.
Even I think in
that's right, Renu.
India
Go
now,
ahead, Indira. Yeah.
sorry, even in India now, the government has started the extended producer
Yes,
responsibility for
responsibility.
various products. It also includes for glass. How effective and how, maybe it's in a nascent stage that we don't know.
Exactly.
But just to say that thought process is also starting
Of course,
here
this
in
is something which has been, there are multiple forums where we have discussed about this extended responsibility, which is very
Yes.
important, because there is we don't want to shut down consumption, and again, we don't want to shut down over consumption, which we think that it's overconsumption. No, what we have to shut down is the processes which are in between, where the circularity is being affected. So there was for instance, there was a movement by the Beverages Corporation of Kerala, where they were giving extra money to people who are bringing the old glass bottles, like, where they used glass bottles. And I was so happy. To be very frank, I was very happy. And I didn't think that, it was going to hit my business. No. The first thing I was like, okay, someone is doing something, and it makes a lot of difference, because it is not the work which can be done by one or two people. It's a whole chunk of people who has to work for it. But the saddest part is it didn't even survive for 6 months. Even I'm talking about in my area, we have 4 to 5 BevCos. Still, it didn't happen. That means how, even if it is decentralized, if you don't have the proper supply chain system, it is not going to work. So you need to know the system. That's, even if that, the responsibility is being taken and given to the companies, it will not work until unless the companies have a way to get it back and do it their own. Nothing is
Yeah,
going.
Yeah, you remind me of, I always ask questions in Amul Doodh Pita Hai India, and then Amul Doodh sachet is thrown everywhere. Every 100 meters you can find 100 Amul Doodh sachet. And why aren't they incentivizing? And same happens with egg crates, which are the least, I will say, in glass and plastic, and the egg crates, the cardboards. Uh, that why aren't they incentivizing? And even if there are incentives, I remember from egg crates, I think the consumer is always doing a cost benefit analysis, as in going and returning those things is more costlier than actually throwing it away, because what do you get out of it? And these are something where the moral responsibility, and I'm so happy to hear from Indira that at least there is a step towards it, because it should have been actually from the beginning of setting up of industry, whether it is selling milk in plastic or selling alcohol beverages in glass bottles. It should have been right from the beginning, because I think when I look at the water management in the country, I also see a very close relationship in it, that for over 5 decades, the whole focus was only on water supply to the urban areas or the cities. Whereas there was not much thought given, in the wastewater that is going to be generated from the excessive water supply into the cities. And waste as a discussion only arrived in the late decade of the last century, when we had more wastewater than actually the stormwater or rainwater into the cities, and when many of the lakes and rivers were full. So there is a moral question as well as policy question. So I will pose my last question to you on this. Where do we stand today, when we know that we are only recycling 30 to 40% glass in the country? I see a huge scope. But at the same time, the fact that there is more virgin glass constantly being produced, which also de-incentivizes to recycle or upcycle glass. I mean, because there's constant supply of fresh glass or silica to produce more glass. So industries are also not motivated to get back the old glass. And also, I'm assuming that the production of a glass product from a virgin glass will be lesser expensive than producing a recycled glass product. That is my assumption, because any recycled product is going to have a more cost, because you have to add to the previous cost as well. Where do we sit today in India in terms of glass recycling policy? Do we have anything like that, or how are they? And I am not embarrassed to say that definitely Ministry of Jal Shakti and Ministry of Commerce are not talking about glass in an integrated manner. But I'm sure there are some policies on circular economy of glass or something, what should be done, and what is the plan we have for increasing from 35% to 75, 95. I don't know what is the percentage target. What will be your say on this? And do you have any, I will say, suggestion for bringing in some policy changes in it?
I don't think
Related to
people are
that,
able to.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry,
please go.
related to that question, there's just one small question. What about raising awareness? Do you know anything of, or how can we raise awareness about this need to recycle glass?
Ma'am, the
Just your
saddest part is
experience.
no one is talking about glass and silica. Have you ever seen any discussion where people are talking about glass or silica? Whenever I'm going to places, any forums, public forums, I'm seen as those that person who has just arrived from Mars or Venus or something.
Black swan. In research, we call
Yes.
it black swan.
Of course, I am like, okay, yeah, karti kya hai kind of situation. I really don't,
That's
it's a
why
very
you're
funny
here
thing.
today.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
mean,
you're
like,
here today.
We want to
so
increase the awareness for
yeah.
sure.
When we talk about glass, is there a problem? That's a question I've heard a lot of them. They know that plastic is a problem. So if you ask people who were 20 years back if plastic was a problem, I don't think plastic was a problem.
Not in my young age.
No, yeah, I mean, like when I grew up in Dubai, where we have oil refineries everywhere. The plastic pellets are like that is the cheapest thing you can find around. But if you ask me, was plastic a problem? No, that was half of our household. It's like everywhere. But now when you talk plastic, definitely, even the smallest of smallest people also who are not even aware about other things in life, they also know that plastic is a problem.
So
So,
awareness has worked, actually. In that sense, awareness has worked.
of course, very, very few. I mean, like, there's a funny part when you say that you travel for miles, taking your carbon footprint high, and then you go to villages to make them aware about how to live in a natural surrounding, how to do this. How have you gotten there? What is your carbon footprint to get there? So if someone asks that question, there ends the whole idea of us being sustainable. So it is not that. The whole idea is not about, pointing fingers to someone. It's like we all have to take an action. It's our backyard. It's our place. Everyone, if they understand this narrative, it's easier. Yeah, I have seen like, my friends are someone who's very interested to come and give me glass bottles. It all started from there because it's difficult for them to store it in their houses. They started bringing it to our studio. Frankly speaking, I have even got calls asking whether they can send it for 150 kilometers away to our studio in a ton or few tons or something. But the whole idea is not that you collect all this. You need to establish the system. Me collecting everything and keeping in my studio is not the way forward. That is not how it should work. And even creating products is not something I would say that is the future of it. No, future is to recycle it in the proper way. That's it. Because Sweden is the only country I know where things are recycled properly. Rest everywhere, Whoever is talking about it, they are the only people who have been making money out of waste. Rest everyone is the same. It's like, be it anyone. So the system is the only thing which I mean, I am not telling that, we tell government is not doing it. We tell the other person is doing. How many of us are doing it at home? The segregation, the first golden rule of peace is segregation. I've seen people even in my household who are not interested in doing that part. So I can imagine how many people are there outside. So as ma'am, as ma'am Mansi ma'am also told the same thing, like incentivize it. You keep a price to it, like you give brownie points to it. You give that motivation. That's the only way you can do it. Otherwise, who is going to do it? Who's going to clean and send it? No one wants to do it. If you're given something, MAC Cosmetics, when you give these 3 pieces of old one, they give you a new one or something of that sort. People do that. So it's the same thing. As simple as that.
Okay, these kind of conversations can really continue to flow, but I will have to stop it somewhere. And before I do so, I would also like to announce the future sessions which we have. So do join us on the forthcoming Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water on March 16th when we talk to Dr. Rinan Shah and Dr. Soma Sarkar. It is also our penultimate session to close the Monday sessions. Then the week after, we come back with Wednesdays for water session of Riverscape series on March 25th when we talk about Bihar's changing riverscape, and we look into the floods, droughts, and the fate of small rivers. All the information will be available on our website www.w4w.in, and do keep checking our websites. We are now very proud to host one of the longest water conversation ever taken place. More than 100 sessions, and we are inching close to nearly 700 speakers who have spoken on our platform. Thank you so much, Indira, for getting this session organized today, and thanks, Ranjini, for giving us a brief peek into the world of glass. I know there is so much of research and development required, and I would really wish that there is policy to increase the upcycling and recycling of the glass. With this, we would like to bring an end to the session. Thanks so much, both of you. Please take care of
Thank
yourself
you.
and see each other soon.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ranjini.
Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
Nancy.
Thank
for the
you.
Bye,
opportunity.
Simon.
Bye-bye. Bye. Okay, Seema, you may stay over. Yeah.